Hello everyone and welcome back to IMO Reviews. The Euros are just around the corner, but I've got a little something that I had to get off my chest. It's time for us to talk about the Gary Neville problem. And I'm not just talking about the fact that he's a downright dirty, rotten red devil.
Scum. Subhuman scum.
I'm talking about the fact that this man has got a very huge platform in the footballing world. And shortly after the announcement of the Super League many years ago and the outrage from fans, actually, Gary Neville managed to connect with the fans, very much so, because he completely agreed with us, stood by us, no matter what backlash might have come his way from his employers, and said that this was fundamentally wrong. He gained a lot of credit and respect from the fans, even Liverpool fans. And from there, he took it upon himself to supposedly bridge that gap and end that divide from club and fan. But I can't help but feel like in recent years, Gary Neville hasn't bridged the gap between fans. He's actually just snuffed the fan voice out entirely and taken over the market. This man will turn up to the opening of a bag of crisps. The overexposure is unbelievable. He feels inescapable at times. If I go on YouTube, he's there. If I go on my social media, he's there. If I go on the TV, he is there. And it's becoming to the point that his voice is the only voice that matters in football. And that is far from the truth. And I will be fair to Gary Neville, there are plenty of positive things that he has genuinely done for fans and the English game. And often I think a lot of these problems I have are well-intended but poorly executed. For example, the overlap, which is where Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher sit down on a couch and almost like a school assembly have a bunch of YouTube football fans sat up in the rafters surrounding them, and they pick people out and take questions and answers. A nice idea, I can see what you're going for, but the problem with it is, oh my god, it's so cringe to watch. Because you've got these YouTube football fans who are completely wetting themselves and giddy because, oh my god, that's Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher. And they completely lose composure and forget who they are. Or the fans that they get on barely even feel like fans. I'm not going to dig anybody out in particular. In fact, I didn't really know his name, but I remember on one episode they got some guy who was off Love Island who was claiming to be a Chelsea fan. I'm no Chelsea fan, but even I was sat there listening to this guy going, what are you talking about? But not only that, I find that Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher just actually dictate the narrative of what's being said. If a fan speaks his mind, I often find that Jamie Carragher, actually being the worst offender here, will often just shut that opinion down and tell him it's nonsense. Rather than hear it out, debate it with them, discuss it, they all seem to forget that it has been nearly 20-something years since they themselves have played the game. And in that time, the game has developed and changed drastically. These are players who don't have any experience of playing under the guidance of VAR, and yet they have such an opinion on it, but will shut down the opinion of a fan. There also seems to be this constant retreading of their own opinion. If you catch Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher in the moment, something breaking has happened right here, right now, Gary Neville, respond. You'll actually get a very good, solid, honest, heartfelt answer from Gary Neville that you actually feel impassioned by, and you support what he says and you agree with it, and you're like, yeah, go on Gary, you said everything I was thinking. Then Sky Sports will go to an ad break and you'll see Gillette, the best your man can get, and all of that shite, only for them to come back, and yes, they'll go back to that breaking news and talk about it, and suddenly Gary Neville has completely and utterly changed his mind within those 5 minutes. I can't help but feel like Gary Neville's had a little word in the earpiece telling him to zip it, because at the end of the day, he is employed by Sky, and Sky are very much in bed with the Premier League. Badmouth Sky and you're bad-mouthing the Premier League. And if you bad-mouth them, you're bad-mouthing your employers. And at the end of the day, they are the overlords. If they say, get out of here, you'll be out of here. You really do get to see who butters whose bread in these situations, and it just has to be clear evidence that you cannot take these people's opinions without a giant pinch of salt. And as much as I have called this the Gary Neville problem, I do think Jamie Carragher is quite the offender as well. This is a man who is very belligerent towards fan opinions. In fact, he'll often say, that sounds like the opinion of a fan in a pub. Well, so what if it is Jamie? Is that man not welcome to his opinion? Is there a chance that that fan might have been supporting this team for 20-something years and might know what he's talking about? Is there a chance that this fan in the pub might do Sunday League coaching, might be training for his FA badges, might actually have an idea of what he's talking about, but because you retired in 2012, I suppose that means you know everything? And Carragher knows he gets it wrong, because a week after saying these comments, he's suddenly in amongst the Dortmund yellow wall, getting drunk, having a great time, It's all about repairing his image. I felt sorry for those Dortmund fans because they had no idea a week ago this is the man that called most fans in the pub stupid, basically. To be honest, the fact he got away with spitting on a child all those years ago says a lot in itself. Or the recent disaster he had where he basically dropped Kate Abdo in it for potentially cheating on her boyfriend with Thierry Henry. The man is a walking clanger. He wants to be Michael Richards, but my god, he does not have the finesse or the charm. And the more he opens his mouth, the more trouble he gets himself into. And not always with words. And I'll be fair, I liked Stick to Football when it first started out. It was refreshing, it was new, it was high quality football content on the scene. But as it's gone on, it has just well and truly become jobs for the lads. Is it just me, or is it quite sad and depressing seeing these legends that I grew up with now frankly just being depressed and having very little direction in their life? I'm looking at people like Teddy Sheringham, Andy Cole, real legends that I would look at as a child and call god tier status players. And they're just sort of lounging around now, not much to do, picking their nose, scratching their arse, watching the horse race on a Sunday. I feel really sorry for them. Each episode is slowly turning into like a therapy session for ex-footballers. Is this about creating quality football content, or is this about giving the class of '92 a decent pension scheme? And this point I'm about to bring up does spread beyond Gary Neville, absolutely, but more so pointed at Gary Neville just because of the sheer power of his voice. If he says it, people believe it. And some of you aren't going to like this, but football is corrupt. I said it. It shouldn't come as a shock to you, but the more I scour through footballing YouTube, apparently that's an absolutely insane notion. Despite the fact that we literally have a team in our league who is winning that league consistently with 115 charges against its name, who are now threatening to break off into their own Super League rather than face the consequences of their own actions. We have clubs with cooked books, we have state-owned clubs, we have rules that apply to the small teams but not to the big teams. We had a World Cup in Qatar, we have perfectly good goals ruled out despite thousands of pounds of technology that should avoid these things, and an apology being the only way to fix it apparently. But no, the game is as legitimately kosher as it's ever been apparently, at least according to the likes of Gary Neville. But like I say, he's not the only one, he's just the most powerful voice. There are even channels that I like out there who have said the same thing as Gary Neville, and I might be a tinfoil hatter, but I couldn't disagree more. The game's always been corrupt, for very obvious reasons. The horse bolted decades ago, whether it be Abramovich's ownership, or the hand of God, or Barcelona robbing Chelsea blind in the Champions League final, Luis Garcia's ghost goal. There's always been a level of corruption here. It's controversial, and we love it. It's the drama that keeps us hooked. But it feels like popular fan channels and Gary Neville alike are almost too scared to just come out and say the obvious, in case the Premier League or the FA comes down on them like a ton of bricks. I mean, Nottingham Forest got themselves into a lot of hot water for making accusations at the Premier League. They're one of the clubs in it. Gary Neville's just a pundit. It's a good thing I'm predominantly a movie critic, isn't it? I can say it, no one gives a shit what I say. Apart from you wonderful people, of course. I think these people are worried they're not going to get that VIP treatment anymore. They're not going to get that invite onto the overlap anymore. They're not going to get that last interview with Jurgen Klopp before he goes. So they end up behaving themselves and being good boys and saying exactly what they're told to say, and that's how we end up with crap content where we just once again compare Scholes to Gerrard on Saturday Social for the 100th time. Kill me now. It is, and it should be, absolutely okay to accept that the game is flawed, and that the bigwigs in charge are absolutely scandalous and run by money. Trust me, I've been robbed of 4 potential Premier League titles, and I'm cool with it. It's okay to acknowledge it and still play the game. In fact, I like the challenge. It just means that one that we did get, we did it on extra hard mode. And like I said, I am going to be fair and talk about some of the positives that I think Gary Neville has brought to the table. He is not scum of the earth. He is not the worst thing to have ever happened to football. Manchester City is. There's no denying that the set that they have in that bar is incredible. That's very high production that I'm genuinely jealous of. I think he's got fantastic chemistry with Roy Keane and Wrighty. The pair of them were born to be on microphones. This is just their calling. They are both so unwaveringly genuine that I could sit there and listen to them for hours. I think it was great that Dele Alli was able to use it as a platform to talk about his problems, and just from an outsider looking in, I would say it looks like it's helped dramatically. I barely ever see any hate for Dele Alli anymore whatsoever. Back in the day, it was a daily occurrence. And I also want to commend a very recent episode where they spoke to Tom Lockyer, the Luton player who collapsed on the pitch not so long ago, and they went through CPR, chest compressions, all of these sort of things that could genuinely save somebody's life. Fantastic to see that. An incredible episode, such a powerful voice sharing something truly life-saving and helpful for everyone. There are definitely positives that have come from Gary Neville working in the football media space. There's no denying that. I just wish it was what they said it was going to be when they started it out. I don't think they should disregard the fans as willy-nilly as they do. Don't keep them at an arm's length and point them out of a crowd like you're the school teacher. It's just belittling. I, for one, would love to see Gary Neville or any of the characters from Stick to Football go onto a different football content creator's channel. Mark Goldbridge and Gary Neville have always had a little bit of a budding rivalry, and it would be absolute box office to see Gary Neville go onto Goldbridge's channel and hash it out with him. But unfortunately, I remember Goldbridge saying something loosely along the lines of that never being able to happen, and proving my point perfectly, because Neville is a competitor, not a colleague. Don't keep getting the same people on. Do they have to have a YouTube channel? Does that guy in the pub not have a valid opinion? Vary it out. I've watched plenty of Liverpool YouTube channels where I find them overly biased about Liverpool and won't say a single bad thing about them. I love Liverpool, but there's plenty of things that we get wrong at times. And if you are going to invite these people on, why can't it be on a one-to-one basis? Actually get them on a level footing with yourself. But I do find it sad and embarrassing to see that goal of wanting to connect to the fans just actually changing into him being Sky's whipping boy and spreading the good word and snuffing out the rest of the football media game in the process. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and please do hit the comment section as well. What do you think of Gary Neville, Stick to Football, the whole crew? Have I gone overboard, or do you completely agree? Let me know in the comment section below. And of course, if you haven't had enough of this crazy ginger, we can always click on these suggested videos right here and get yourself lost in an IMO wormhole. But if not, take care, and I look forward to seeing you on the next review.